All right, this is our video lesson on Chapter 9, Section 1. So we're starting Unit 3, which is on learning. So as we transition into this Unit 3 on learning, just gonna kind of remind you of what we've been talking about, where we've been. So you were introduced to various types of psychology, along with numerous psychologists that employ these different types of techniques. So you've also studied the development of children through their various stages. And so now we're moving along into this mini unit on conditioning and learning, in which you'll continue to hear familiar names and techniques. So you are going to have to recall some of that previous information that we talked about on behavioralism and some of those psychologists that did that. You're going to hear a lot of themes that we've already kind of introduced earlier in the year, kind of coming up now as we get into this unit. So before I move on here, I want to kind of read something to you and see what you think. So as we're starting to explore this idea of conditioning, I want to read you a little scenario and see what you would have done. Okay, so the question is, which pen would you choose? Okay, so the researchers placed participants in a room. In this room, the participants first viewed purple pens. As the participants sat staring at the purple pens, pleasant music was playing in the background. Then the music stopped, and the purple pens were taken away. Suddenly, green pens appeared. As the participants sat staring at the green pens, they heard unpleasant music in the background. Later, the researchers offered the pens to the participants. The participants could pick a purple or a green pen. Which pen do you think that they chose? If you guessed purple, you would be right. They overwhelmingly chose the purple pen. Why is this? Well, this has to do with they were conditioned, rather unknowingly, but in any event, they were conditioned by the pleasant music to pick the purple pen. They may not have known why they picked the purple pen, but that is why. And we've already kind of looked at this when we did our unit on consumerism. Where else have we seen this idea? This is the idea that television commercials are based off of. Pairing a product with pleasant sensations or pleasant music, it motivates consumers to make a choice without really consciously being aware of why they made that choice. So we're going to continue on to that theme and kind of see how can that transition into a learned behavior. And so you're going to hear about the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov and what he called classical conditioning, which is defined as learning a procedure in which associations are made between a natural stimulus and a neutral stimulus. And we'll get into more of what those vocab words mean in a minute. All right. And how this classical conditioning, this learning procedure, can be applied into what we call learning. What is learning? It's a relatively permanent change in behavior tendency that results from experience. So how can we go from this one experience of choosing this purple pen to, could we actually teach someone to choose purple every single time? Well, we're going to find out. All right, so that's just kind of a little intro into what we're going to be talking about. All right, so our objectives here, there are going to be a few experiments that are in this PowerPoint that I would strongly encourage that you do. I mean, I think they're fun to do, but I think it really helps you to drive home the point of how this all works and get in your head some of these vocab words and help you understand how do I apply them. All right. We'll also be using the parts of classical conditioning to label various key experiments, and we'll understand how we can do behavior modification and also the role of reinforcement. So, how do you know that learning has occurred? How do we answer that question? How do we know that someone has actually learned something? There's lots of different answers that you could put here. But we check for learning and understanding by giving tests and quizzes. We can check for learning to just do observed behavior. So there's lots of different ways that we can check and see if something has been learned. So it's definitely something that is observable. Some interesting things. Did you know that Albert Einstein did not speak until he was 3? His family feared he would never talk because his mastery of speech was so slow. Interesting, right? And then you have Thomas Edison, who had poor grammar and spelling. Even into his late teens, this problem continued. Despite these two facts, would you say that they are scholarly individuals? I'm going to guess that the majority of you, if not all of you, said, yeah, I think Albert Einstein was scholarly. And yes, I think Thomas Edison was also a scholarly individual. And you would be right. So why put this here? This is to show that, to be scholarly, to be intellectual, it can be learned, and it can be learned in different ways. Just because someone has poor grammar and poor spelling doesn't necessarily mean that they can't learn at all, in the case of Thomas Edison here. All right, so use that as encouragement. If there's any of you that struggle with your grammar or your spelling, and even into your teens now, don't be discouraged. You still have the capability of learning, and you still have the capability of doing great things. Grammar and spelling is just one small piece of learning. It's not the whole puzzle. All right. So if you were one of the people that said, how do we know that learning has taken place? We know that it's taken place. One of the ways is by observing changes in performance, as I suggested earlier. And so we're going to talk about some psychologists today that created controlled situations that are conducive to learning and then measured the performance over time. And there's ways that we can measure performance. And performance can also be influenced in a variety of ways. We can influence performance and the measure by emotion. Changing the emotion somebody feels can also change their performance. How motivated someone is can change their performance, and also sometimes our health can also change our performance. So just take a second and think about a time how performance in school has been influenced for you by one of these above factors. Emotion, maybe. If you're not in a good mood, you had a bad day, you come to class and you just put your head down, you're like, I'm not really interested in learning today. And therefore, it might be the most important lesson, but if you're not emotionally invested in it, the learning's not going to be very great. Versus somebody who comes in eager to learn, who is motivated, maybe motivated by a reward. Maybe if they get straight A's, their parents are going to reward them with something. Maybe motivated by competition. I want to do better than my friend, or at least as good as my friends. And then health can also play a factor. If you're not well, if you're sick, if you're ill, you can't function like you normally would. And so all of these factors can influence our performance on how we do and learn. So I have a little activity here that I want you guys to do. It's called an alphabet activity. I did this on my Zoom call this morning, and it was kind of fun. So I'm just going to walk you through the directions on how to do it. This is something you can do on your own. This is one of those experiments I was talking about. If you choose to do it, send me a message, send me an email, send me something on Schoology, and give me the results and tell me how you did. I'd be really curious to see, but this will be something fun that'll help you kind of get an idea of learning. So I'm going to pause right for a second, and I'll pull up that activity for you. All right, so here's your activity. Hopefully you're looking at my Schoology page. This is in the folder for this week. So if you're not watching it on the video, or if you need to go back and reference it, it's there for you. So this is the learning the reverse alphabet. So the concept is repetition and practice enable most people to learn a task in a relatively limited amount of time. So if I asked you right now, how many of you think that you could do the alphabet in reverse order perfectly in 30 seconds? How many of you think you could do it? I'd be willing to bet maybe one or two of you think you could. The rest of you are like, maybe not. So we're going to do this, and we're going to see how well you do. So what you need for this, you need a watch or a clock with a second hand or a stopwatch. You can use the data sheet, which I'll scroll down is right here. If you want, you can print this off to make it easier for you. If not, you don't have to print it. Don't feel like you have to. You can just use a sheet of lined notebook paper, and then you'll need a pencil. So what you're going to do is you're going to take either the data sheet that's provided here or your lined piece of notebook paper. If you're using lined paper, you're going to number it 1 through 10, and you're going to skip every other line. All right, then from there, you are going to have 30 seconds to write the 26 letters of the English alphabet in reverse order. So you're to use the first line of your sheet of paper, and you start with the letter Z, and you're going to move from left to right on the page. Once 30 seconds is up, you immediately stop, and then you count, and you see how many you got correct. Now, you have to actually get it correct. I'm going to, skip down here. All right. I have loaded the alphabet here on the PowerPoint for you to reference to go back. So if you went, let's say, Z, Y, X, V, W, that would be incorrect. You only got 3 right with the Z, Y, and X. If you flip letters around, that's where you stop counting. Okay, so it has to be incorrect order backwards in order for it to count. So what you're going to do is you're going to do that for 30 seconds. You'll stop, you'll count, see how well you did. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the top of your paper and cover up that line that you just wrote with the alphabet. And you're going to repeat those steps. So 30 seconds and write the alphabet in reverse order. Stop at the end of 30 seconds and count how many numbers or how many letters you got correct in the correct order. So the idea here is after completing the trials, you guys don't have to chart your progress, but answer these questions. How did your results vary from trial to trial? Is there a noticeable trend in your results? If so, describe it. And then once the skill was learned, were you able to sustain your results? And so this will be interesting to do. If you do choose to do this, like I said, send me an email. Tell me how you did and answer these 3 questions. I'd love to know if any of you were actually able to do the alphabet in reverse order, and how many trials it took you to do it in. And, if this is a skill you never thought you could do, and now look at this in 10 trials of 30 seconds, you've learned this behavior. So that's kind of the goal here, just kind of something fun. All right, I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint now, but you guys feel free to do that on your own or pause this video and go ahead and do that. All right, so again, here's your alphabet for your reference. All right, don't cheat though. I know you won't. Okay, going back here, you know what? I think I'm going to have to actually stop this video because I'm going to run out of time. All right, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to have to do like I did last time, post part 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. So once you do this alphabet, come back and check out the next video, and I'll get into more details on the classical conditioning. All right, bye.